Hey folks, this is Kelani. Going into Legion, I doubt anyone thought we would be facing off against a corrupt Titan World Soul as our last strike against the Legion. Quite a few names cropped up when talking about the last boss in the Legion expansion, from Azara to Sargeras himself. I guess we sort of dealt with Sargeras, but we didn't get a chance to poke at his ankles personally. I wonder when we'll see his face again. There's probably a reason he's imprisoned and not dead, as if we could actually kill him, but Argus was our main target for the end of Legion. We needed to take him out to prevent the other Titans from falling to the same fate as Agrimar, to decimate the Legion's potential to regenerate, and the Pantheon also used the last of Argus's power to drag Sargeras out of his cloud and imprison him, saving Azeroth in the process. So what about the battle for Azeroth? Where does the next expansion lead? It might be a little early to start speculating about the end of the next expansion, considering it's not even released yet, but it's fun to try and peer through the veil of the future and see if we can guess where things are headed. So who could be the last boss of the Battle for Azeroth expansion? We do know where a few raids will take us and what bosses will be fighting in those raids, so I guess that's as good a place to start as any. We'll be delving into the ruins of Uldir to deal with some problems that the Titans left behind when trying to discover a way to free our world from the corrupting grip of the Old Gods and the Void. It looks like they failed quite spectacularly because not only did they fail to solve our Old God problem, but they created a powerful entity which is being worshipped as a blood god by the blood trolls on Zandalar. They managed to lock the creature away, and its prison was secured with 3 seals, most of which have broken. There's only one left. That's probably why Uldir is our first stop in our raiding tour of Battle for Azeroth. We'll fight our way through the monstrosities that await and either destroy this new blood god or reform the seals which created his original prison. But I do wonder if that would wrap up the blood troll storyline in the new expansion. What if G'huun wasn't the only blood god these trolls were worshipping and empowering? We haven't seen our old friend Hakar for quite a while now, and I can't imagine he would take too kindly to some other creature stealing his title of blood god. In fact, the last time we saw Hakar was in the revamped Zul'Gurub dungeon during Cataclysm, where Jindo the Godbreaker was siphoning Hakar's power. After we release the chains binding Hakar, he destroys Jindo and vanishes, but not before promising to deal with us another time. That time could be now. We're back to an Alliance vs Horde war. A new blood god is encroaching on his territory. There's these crazy blood trolls who seem more savage than the other troll tribes, and this expansion seems to have a huge troll focus. Everything seems to line up for Hakar the Soulflayer's return, but would he be the last boss of this expansion? The most talked about theme that we'll probably end up seeing in Battle for Azeroth is the return of the Old Gods and a glimpse into the Void. No matter what is being discussed about the next expansion, it seems like the Old Gods can explain everything. Why are we fighting each other again after working so hard to repel the Legion together? Old Gods are turning everyone crazy. Why is Azerite so powerful? Old Gods are corrupting the blood of Azeroth. How does this expansion bring us closer to exploring the Void? Old Gods and more Old Gods. There's also a key figure tied to the Old Gods who we've been itching to take a swing at for so many expansions now. Queen Azara. We're headed out into open water, we're exploring islands in the middle of the seas. What better time for Azara and her Naga army to strike? They tried to get something done on the Broken Isles, but fell short when we took back the Tidestone. Queen Azara's wrath wasn't quite enough to stop us. But what about Queen Azara herself? We know for sure we'll be seeing her as a raid boss during Battle for Azeroth. We even have some cool concept art and a new model. I think she's supposed to be part of the second tier of raids, which means she probably won't end up being the last boss of the expansion. At least I would hope not. If we ended up having a few problems like we had during Warlords of Draenor, and our raid tiers were cut short, she might end up being the last boss, which would be fairly disappointing, seeing as she doesn't seem tied to our faction war all that closely. She's just kind of a loose end that we've been needing to deal with for quite a while. But I wonder if she's been acquiring any new powers now that Azerite is bursting forth from the crust of Azeroth. I think quite a chunk of this precious new material might be underwater, which seems to be entirely her realm. We haven't been introduced to any other power which might control the floors of the ocean. It's always been the Naga, but even if she isn't the last boss of the expansion, Azara could lead us to someone who might be. One of the last old gods to rear their ugly head was responsible for the transformation of the Night Elves who followed Queen Azshara. After her plans were foiled and the Great Sundering swallowed her glorious city, Queen Azshara and her Nightborn were sinking into the depths, drowning slowly but surely. As their lungs burned for air, whispers from an unknown force promised them safety and power. The once beautiful Night Elves became the vicious Naga. Their bargain had spared their lives, but they would never be the same again. The one responsible for their transformation is most likely N'Zoth. There's been a bit of back and forth about how many old gods are actually present on Azeroth, but it seems like there were 4 major players. Yasaj was dealt with by the Titans themselves, and we defeated Garrosh after he absorbed the last remaining essence of Yasaj in Siege of Orgrimmar. We fought back Cthulhu after he reawakened, and we destroyed the manifestation of Yogg-Saron in Ulduar. We've dealt with 3 of the 4. The only one who we've yet to see is N'Zoth. Even if the other old gods aren't totally destroyed, it's N'Zoth's turn in the spotlight. It's been a while since we fought an old god directly. This could end up being really fun. Apparently N'Zoth was the weakest of the 3 old gods that remained intact, but he's had much longer to brood and gather his strength. Maybe we'll end up fighting more than just a fragment of his being this time. We've only really got to poke a head or an eyeball previously when it comes to old gods. According to Xal'atath, N'Zoth writhes in his prison, breaking free ever so slowly. We don't really know a great deal about N'Zoth, but it seems like his prison is somewhere beneath the sea. We've had a lot of speculation pointing this way and that. His prison could even be beneath the Maelstrom, but either way, if he's in the sea, this expansion would be a great time to introduce the last old god, especially if we're dealing with Queen Azshara. I wonder how the story will progress from Horde vs Alliance to a war with the old gods. Of course, the entire old god thing could be a massive bait and switch. It does seem a little too obvious, doesn't it? Is that really where we're heading? There's a few other options which might seem a little far-fetched, but it wouldn't be the first time Blizzard has surprised us with a few twists and turns in the storyline. There's a chap sitting on a rather cold seat somewhere up north who a lot of players seem to have forgotten about. Unless you've played a Death Knight recently, the Lich King might have escaped your attention. He may have been sitting idly for a little while now, but during Legion, he seems to have been rather busy. He assisted the Death Knights in recovering 2 powerful artifacts and helped them reforge the shards of Frostmourne. He also created a new set of the 4 Horsemen, resurrecting Nazgrim, Thoros Trollbane, and High Inquisitor Whitemane. These aren't just random chaps who he decided to resurrect. They were all powerful in their own rights while alive. Raised into undeath, they're a dangerous force to be reckoned with. They weren't exactly gentle with their acquisition of some of these bodies either. They slaughtered their way through Scarlet Monastery to reach Whitemane's body, and they even assaulted Light's Hope Chapel in an attempt to recover Tyrion Fordring's body to raise as the final horseman. Thankfully, they were pushed back and Darian Mograine was killed in the battle. After returning to Acheris, Bolvar ordered the Death Lord to raise Darian as the 4th and final horseman. For the moment, these horsemen follow the Death Lord, but the power to resurrect the horsemen in the first place came from Bolvar. I wonder what would happen if Bolvar decided he wanted full control over the undead, Death Knights and all. We might have delivered a powerful elite force right to his doorstep, and that's ignoring the army of the Scourge he still has at his beck and call. You might question why Bolvar might take up arms against the Horde and the Alliance, but remember, he's been atop Icecrown Citadel for a very long time now. He's had time to think. Maybe his thoughts took him to a very dark place. Seeing the Horde and the Alliance slaughtering each other after all he sacrificed to save this world might just tip him over the edge. But then again, maybe it's not his fault. After all, he is surrounded by a citadel made of Yogg-Saron's blood. Maybe the old god has been whispering in his ear all these years, twisting and turning Bolvar into a puppet, just like the last Lich King. Either way, if he's not making an appearance in Battle for Azeroth, I would be very surprised if we didn't see him sometime soon after. Twisted Naga, old gods, or maybe another Lich King. They all seem kind of small after dealing with a Titan World Soul and the Pantheon. But what if the last boss of the Battle for Azeroth is another Titan, another World Soul? What if the Battle for Azeroth ends with us fighting Azeroth herself? We've already dealt with 1 corrupted World Soul, so we know it's definitely doable, but that would assume Azeroth is, or at least becomes, corrupted to the point of us having to take up arms against our own world. If the old gods have a hand in everything that's happening, then they're obviously still a threat. If they're still a threat, maybe they've burrowed deeper than we ever thought possible. Maybe our world is already being corrupted. The blood of Azeroth flowing freely is a sign that Azeroth is already significantly wounded. This is probably the most vulnerable the slumbering world soul has ever been. I don't know how this could pan out if we have to destroy Azeroth. Would the physical world still exist? There are worlds out there without world souls, right? They seem to do alright. Maybe we don't need a world soul for the planet Azeroth to exist and be fine. Maybe that's how we get rid of the old gods once and for all, get rid of the host to get rid of the disease. But this could go a different way. A nicer way. What if Azeroth is only just becoming corrupted? What if it's not too late to save her? Magni ends up giving us the Heart of Azeroth for a reason. He wants us to collect the leaking Azerite to maybe find a way to save Azeroth. If Azerite isn't already corrupted by the old gods, that could actually be what we end up doing. Instead of fighting the world soul of Azeroth, maybe the last boss encounter in Battle for Azeroth is us saving the world soul from the corruption of the void. Maybe we use the collected Azerite to bolster her defenses, cleanse the corruption, and ultimately save the Titan in our world. Besides being a feel-good story and potentially a good setup for introducing the Void, this would also provide a reasonable explanation for ditching our Heart of Azeroth artifact going into the expansion after BFA. The explanation for getting rid of our current artifacts in Legion is a bit lackluster, but if we're collecting all of this Azerite to save Azeroth, spending all of that Azerite to save Azeroth actually makes sense. That opens us up for a new artifact cloak, or artifact belt, or whatever else they decide to make an artifact going into the future. But what do you think? Will we be facing off against the old gods, against the Void itself, or will our Titan World Soul be the last boss in Battle for Azeroth? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.